Good morning, boys and girls. My name is Amanda McBriar, and I'm a third grade teacher at Scales Elementary.
And I'm Rachel Slough, and I'm a fourth grade teacher at Scales Elementary. And today, Miss McBriar and I are going to be talking to you about tornadoes. So first, I'm going to read you a wonderful story that has to do with tornadoes. We have a community partner joining us to teach you some more about tornadoes, and we're going to do an experiment. So first, I want to start with reading you Otis and the Tornado, written by Lauren Long. Life was calm on the farm where the friendly little tractor named Otis lived. It was summer. The sun shined bright, the birds chirped, and after all the work was done, Otis and his friend the little calf liked to play. They would gather all their farm friends for a grand game of follow the leader. They would take turns being the leader as they marched along. Otis would go first, put, puff, puttity, chuff, followed by the little calf, who would bound ahead, bawling all the while. Soon the horse would trot to the lead with a neigh, neigh, as his hooves clip, clopped. Finally, the ducks would waddle to the front with a chorus of quack, 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 quack. They all followed the leader, up by the apple tree, around the barn, down the rolling hill, past Mud Pond, beyond the cornfield, across the meadow, and along the banks of Mud Creek. What a fun crowd they were. Everyone was so friendly, except the bull. The bull was nobody's friend. When he was not in his pen, he was kept in a pasture all by himself. It's an angry looking face he has right there. If any of the other farm animals got close, the bull would stand at the fence and snort and snarl and huff hot air. Suddenly, with a burst, he would run back and forth along the fence. Then he would stop and glare at them like a statue, never moving a muscle except to flare his nostrils. The bull did not like anyone, and everyone was afraid of him. Once Otis tried to make friends with the bull. He took him a shiny red apple from the apple tree and invited him to play. But the bull snorted and snarled and glared at Otis. Then he stomped his hooves in the dirt and charged. The bull slammed into the fence just inches away from where Otis stood. From that day on, Otis stayed clear of the bull altogether. One day, the farm's skies began to swirl and turn dark. The winds blew and the rain came down. The animals in the barn grew restless and jittery. The skies tumbled and turned and turned and tumbled. Otis didn't mind the rain, but there was something different about this storm that he could feel deep down in his pipes. All at once, the wind stopped blowing, not even a breeze, and the rain disappeared. The sky turned a strange shade of green, and the farm fell completely still. The only sound Otis heard as he puffed toward the barn was the farmer shouting in the distance, "It's coming fast! Get down in the cellar!" The farmer was in such a hurry that he had no time for the animals. What was all the fuss about? Otis wondered. Then he turned and saw something that rattled his frame and shook his fenders. A tornado. You can see right up there. And it was heading straight towards the farm. What would happen to all the animals locked in the barn? Otis sprung into action. He nudged the latch of the little calf stall until the door swung open. Next, Otis freed the pig and the sheep. The wind howled closer. He stretched to unlatch the horses and the cows' doors at the same time. Click, clack, the animals were free. They followed Otis out of the barn and into the swirling winds. They followed him down the rolling hill, past Mud Pond, beyond the cornfield, across the meadow, over the bank, and down into Mud Creek. Tucked down at the lowest part of the farm, Otis, the little calf, and all of their farm friends felt safe. Otis sighed with relief. Now they just had to huddle together and wait it out. But just as they squeezed close and tight, Otis heard an awful bellowing cry, the sound of a large creature in trouble. The bull, he was locked in his pen. From the safety of Mud Creek, Otis saw the tornado speeding in the terrified animal's direction. Lightning crashed, the tornado howled, the bull screamed, and in a flash, Otis was gone. He raced across the meadow, putt, puff, puffity chuff, beyond the cornfield, past Mud Pond, and up the rolling hill to the bullpen. Otis found the bull tucked under the shed, shaking in fear. Otis tried to unlatch the gate. It was locked. He slammed head on into it. The gate shook but held firm. Otis rammed it again. The gate teetered. The bull wailed like a baby. Otis spun around, threw himself in reverse, and revved his engine and charged backward into the gate. Crash! The gate shattered into pieces. Otis shook himself off, gave the bull a friendly chuff, and peeled out. The bull followed Otis down the rolling hill, past Mud Pond, and beyond the cornfield. The tornado roared like a freight train as they crossed the meadow, and just as Otis and the bull dove for cover over the bank and into Mud Creek, the tornado touched down, narrowly missing them. Otis, the little calf, the bull, and all the farm friends ducked their heads and closed their eyes. They'd never heard such a fury or felt such a rage, but they were all safely tucked down in the muddy creek's bed at the lowest part of the farm, and they stayed huddled there until long after the tornado had passed. They came out only when it was calm and the sun shined bright and the birds began to chirp. They found a farm that needed great repair. But when the work was all over and it was time to play, the farm friends discovered they had a new playmate. This one snorted and stomped his hooves in the dirt. He flared his nostrils and huffed hot air, but instead of a snarl and a glare, he wore a happy grin and a friendly gaze as he took his place in line with Otis and the little calf in the grand game of Follow the Leader. The end. This is such a great story about how a small act of kindness, and in this case it was a pretty large act of kindness, even to someone who's not always that kind to you, can make a huge difference in someone's life.
Yeah, and I even noticed on there they had a lot of work to be redone after the tornado came, and that's kind of going to lead us into our awesome community partner that's here with us today. We're super excited to have her. She's going to talk about the latest tornado that came through Nashville. So I would love to introduce Danielle Breezy from News Channel 2.
Hi guys, how are you?
We're doing well. How about you?
I'm good.
Awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about the recent tornado that came through Nashville?
Yes, for sure. So I'll tell you this, it was a crazy night. You'll remember March 2nd into March 3rd, we had some tornadoes that night, early in the night in Kentucky. Then we had the big one come through. It started in our western zones. We call it Benton and Carroll County there. But then as it moved through, it came to Dixon, Cheatham County, producing like golf ball size hail. And it lifted for a second, and then it came back down over Nashville and unfortunately touched down. It stayed on the ground through Wilson County and into Smith County before it lifted. It was an EF3 tornado, and at one point it winds, I believe, 135 miles per hour. Did a ton of damage. You can see that on the pictures there. Unfortunately, did damage not only to buildings and homes, but also to schools. I had the opportunity to tour DCA in Donaldson, and thank goodness, in a way, it came in the middle of the night because that school was leveled. So a lot of schools, unfortunately, were impacted by that. Now, had a path length of over 60 miles, second longest in our state history, hitting at 11:45 till 12:45 in the middle of the night, and then did the EF4 tornado in Putnam County, unfortunately, in Cookeville. So it was kind of a dangerous night, but I know a lot of people, as I went out to them the next day, were thankful to be alive and be happy, and they had called each other and woke each other up, and it was just neighbor helping neighbor, and that's how we got Nashville strong, Cookeville strong, Tennessee strong. So, you know, even through tragedy, really good things come about from it.
Yeah, well, thank you for all you do with keeping us informed on these things and things like that. So that's awesome. So we're going to do an experiment really quick, and then we're going to have you right back on after that to talk a little bit about tornado safety and exactly how a tornado forms.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
Go for it.
Okay, so Miss Flower, you ready?
I'm ready when you are.
All right. Do you want to tell them kind of maybe what they could gather together if they wanted to do this experiment at home?
Yes, so all you need for this are 2 empty 2-liter bottles. And you just tape them together right here, and this is what is going to model the vortex of a tornado, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So you just grab your 2-liter bottles and connect them. Maybe have a parent or sibling or somebody hold it for you and duct tape it really tight and sealed off so the water doesn't come out. You could also add food coloring if you want to make your tornado a little fancy. We just have clear water in there, but that's all you need. You also need a timer.
Yeah.
And Miss McBrawer will kind of explain what we're getting ready to do.
Yeah, so you can use a phone or any type of timer that you have. We're gonna do this tornado in 3 different methods. So we're gonna first flip the bottle over and with no wind. We're just gonna flip it over and see how long it takes, and then we're gonna record our time on our prediction sheet. And then we're also going to add a little bit of a light wind to the tornado and see how it affects the time or seconds that it takes from the water to get from one side of the bottle to the other. And then we're actually going to have really high winds and shake the bottle a little bit harder and see if that affects the time as well. So if you will, Ms. Lau, you are going to not shake the bottle first, and you can kind of just talk about what we notice and what we see with this. So let me get my timer ready.
Okay, so while she's getting that ready, the water is what's representing the wind. So if I'm not going to add any force to it, we're not going to have any wind. So
Okay.
I'm ready when you are.
I'm ready.
Okay, so you're just going to carefully tip your bottles over, and I can see it's kind of bubbling out and it just fell straight through to the other side.
Okay, so it took 6 seconds for the water to get from one side to the other with no wind. So we're going to record that on our prediction sheet. Okay.
All right. So make sure that you collect the data. So you need to make sure you're collecting data for your experiment. So you get that recorded on your sheet.
Yep.
And then when we're ready, we'll do the next one
right,
with
so-
a light wind.
Yep, this one's
Okay.
with just a light wind going on, not a harsh wind. Ready when you are.
Okay, so grab the bottles with both hands and carefully turn it over, and then just use your top hand and kind of move your hand around so it will create a wind there.
Okay, so that time it took 5 seconds. So we're going to record that on our prediction sheet, and let's talk about that a little bit, Ms. Lau. Did you think that it was going to take longer or shorter amount of time when we flipped it with a little bit of wind?
So I thought with a little bit of wind it would take less time, so it would be faster.
Okay.
So we had, what was our time on the first one?
6
We had
seconds.
6 seconds and then
5 seconds. What do you think is going to happen when we add the biggest amount?
Thinking if we add more force, then it might take less time and be faster.
All
So we
right.
just have to see if that's how it
Let's
works
check
out.
it out. All right, ready when you are.
Okay, so again, just grab both sides and we're going to shake a little faster this time. So you're going to have to add a little bit more force, make sure it was just more than the one you did on the previous one. All right, that kind of got caught up in the
Yeah.
top of the bottle there.
I think it actually took the longest amount of time. It was actually almost 8 seconds for that one. So we'll record that on our prediction sheet. So our predictions were off, but can we talk about maybe why that happened?
All right, so it did take longer. So that means it was slower. So the higher the time, the slower it was. And one thing that we're missing from this model of our tornado is the temperature of wind. So that's what we're going to talk about next. We're going to learn a little bit more about tornadoes and how they form and what all those elements that are needed for a tornado to actually occur.
So I think we should bring back Danielle to talk to us about how exactly tornadoes form, and then also give us some information about how to be safe if we are faced with a tragedy like a tornado. Come on.
All right. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about tornadoes, and obviously we have this lovely fact sheet going on too, but first things first, we talk about this all the time with the kiddos. What do we need? We need warm and we need cold air. A lot of times you hear about Tornado Alley. Tornado Alley is normally characterized in Oklahoma, Texas, also up through the Dakotas, and the reason for this is because there's cold air in Canada and there's warm, moist air in the Gulf of Mexico, and that clash creates it. Unfortunately, we've been seeing a little bit of a shift in Tornado Alley towards our area in Tennessee, so we really need to stay prepared for tornadoes. Already this year, we've had 17, just to let you guys know, so it's quite a bit. All right. Talking about the tornado though, so we'll have warm, cold air, then we get a little bit of wind, then we need a thunderstorm, okay? And that thunderstorm is characterized as a supercell, which is a rotating storm, okay? And once you get those clouds, by the way, thunderstorm cloud, you should know this one, cumulonimbus cloud, okay? So basically all thunderstorms, do they have thunder and lightning? Not necessarily. I'll tell you a little bit about that too, because basically we have thunder, we have lightning. What comes first? Well, it's the lightning. And first you're going to see that lightning strike, and then you're going to listen for the thunder. And all of you at home, by the way, I'll give you another experiment. You can be mini meteorologists when we have storms, and we've had quite a bit this last couple of days, right? So you can track them in your house. All you can do is, you look for the lightning and you listen, you wait 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi. And if you hear the clap, it's about a mile away. If you get to 10, it's 2 miles away. And if it's less than 5, it's less than a mile. You want to get inside and get away from the windows. Now, sometimes you don't hear the thunder. And we call that in summertime, we call that heat lightning. And that's because the thunderstorm is so far away, you can see the lightning, but you actually can't hear the thunder. So that's why not all thunderstorms have thunder and lightning around your area. All right, so we're getting there. We're getting closer. So we got the warm, we've got the cold air, we've got the wind. Then we've got the thunderstorm, the supercell, and now it's rotating. So the next thing is, do we get a tornado from that? Not necessarily. The biggest thing we look for is what we call a funnel cloud. A funnel cloud is going to be a cloud that comes down off the major cloud and you see it rotating. Now, does that mean we have a tornado? Not necessarily. We have to actually see that touch the ground. And once it touches the ground, it becomes the confirmed tornado on the ground. So even though we get these cells, sometimes we don't get tornado warnings. Which brings me to that, by the way, because we talk about, tornado watches, tornado warnings. I think it's super important to go over this, especially since we've had so many of them in recent time. That tornado watches really are what we say we're watching the sky. So conditions are right. We've got a cold front coming. We've got a really warm day out ahead of it. We could have thunderstorms in the area. If we get a tornado watch, it's when you need to be thinking, okay, I got to be prepared. I got to get my safety kit together. I got to be ready to go. Where am I going to go? I got to watch the TV all day or get the mobile app. So then you get a tornado warning. That's different. That means you need to take action. So we talk about this all the time. Where do you go when there's a tornado? Well, depends on where you live or what you're dealing with, okay? So if you, for instance, have a house and you're in a house, you do not go upstairs with a tornado, right? It's coming from the sky. So you want to think lowest level, and I always say on television, center of a room with no windows. So we think about rooms like that. You girls can think about that too. It's like maybe a bathroom, maybe there's a closet, maybe there's a hallway, maybe you don't have something like that, so a hallway. Now, what if you live in an apartment building? I live in a condo building. I know what it's like. So I always say, where do you go? Well, you want to try to, if you can, make friends with your downstairs neighbor. Bring them cookies, bring them a dessert. They'll have you in when there's a tornado warning. It's super important you do that. Or if there's a common area. Now, in my building in particular, we actually have a garage down at the lowest level, and that's where I tell my husband to take the dog and go down there. The other thing is, you don't want to be left out in the guard when we have a tornado warning. You got to think about, what am I going to take to wherever I go? And I should mention this, if you're in a car, best thing to do, not drive and outrun the tornado. Go to, if you can, to a store or somewhere with shelter and get inside there. And also, if you live in a trailer, please make other plans. Think about a family member's house that's more sturdy. I know a lot of stores will always let you in. So please, please, please do that. I think it's so important. So when you're going to your safe zone, though, I think it's so important to think about what you need to bring. Bringing things are so important. So I always have a bag. And if you can get a bag ready now, you can do this too. You need some water. You need food, maybe a cracker, snack, something to hold you over. Then you have to think about this. With most of these storms, the first thing that happens, we had this happen on Sunday night with not even tornado warning storms, just a derecho coming through, thunderstorms. Power goes out, flashlights, something so you can see like candles, something like that, because your power could be out, and not just for that night, it could be out for days. Then you want to think about, do I want to go to my safe shelter in my pajamas with no shoes? No. You need to have your shoes on, you want to have pants on, you want to have a jacket, and then you want to be thinking about, well, I might be there for a while, because sometimes Danielle goes on air for many, many hours, so what am I going to do to keep myself occupied? So I always say, bring your favorite stuffed animal, bring a book, bring a game, and then also bring your technology too, your devices. We always say, charge those devices, make sure they're in the on position, especially at night, and just make sure you're streaming us, because once that power goes out, you got to be able to have that WKRN News 2 weather app, or if you can go to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those things, we're keeping you guys nice and safe. But I think it's so important that we, drive that message home, because we've already had 17 tornadoes this year, and our average is 8, and it's only May. So it's a little scary. Now, our peak month is normally April, but we get them any time of year nowadays. So it's just something you want to think about when it comes to a tornado warning. Where are you going to go? And when it happens, when you see it on the air, you need to take action. I can't stress that enough. Now, a lot of folks did take action on March 2nd and 3rd, and that's why I think a lot of people were safe.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So I saw some really cool vocabulary words.
Okay.
Can we talk about what a supercell is again? That was a big word for some of our kiddos out there.
Of course. So supercell. So that is really an organized thunderstorm. So we have thunderstorms, right? But they start to rotate. And when they rotate, that means we have swirling column of winds, which is super important. I wish I brought my balloons. We could have done like a thing showing you how you get wind too and how we get a lot of wind. But anyway, yeah, once you get that organized, then you get the spin needed to get things going. Now, the other thing is we sometimes will look at what we call, this is another big word, you probably don't know this one, but it's wind shear. And we always say there's a lot of shear in the atmosphere. And all that means is winds are going from one way lower. As we go up, they turn a different way. And that creates the spin on our thunderstorms and creates the spin to get the funnel clouds going to create the spin to get the tornado.
Okay. And can I ask you another question? Is there a reason maybe why more tornadoes happened here in Middle Tennessee and not in like East or West Tennessee? Is the land have anything to do with
I don't
that?
know. It is interesting. We have definitely had more than they have because in total of Tennessee, we've had 28 tornadoes in total this year.
Wow.
And our average for a year is 26, so already above it. But think about it here. We've already had 17 in Middle Tennessee, so we're taking up more of that average.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's necessarily geographical. And I also want to say this: if you live on a hill or you live by a river and you think you're okay because of these myths, or those are all myths. Tornadoes can come down in any part of the country at any time if given the right opportunity and the right conditions to get things going. But it's just, I think for some reason, Middle Tennessee has had a lot of days of very warm temperatures that surge out of a strong front coming down. And I'm telling you, it's not just like Tennessee, it's Alabama, all the area like around us, the southeast. We call it like Dixie Alley, which is kind of like the second tornado alley. But really, it's becoming like a bigger tornado alley because we've actually had years where we have surpassed already the amount of tornadoes in some place like Oklahoma and Texas where they get more of them normally because of where they are.
Awesome. Wow. Well, thank you for all of this awesome information and thank you for coming out with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We do have a couple more minutes. I wanted to ask one more question, if you don't mind. Could you talk to us about how you categorize a tornado?
Oh, that's actually very good. Okay, so we have what's called the Fujita scale, which was by Ted Fujita. He was a researcher for tornadoes and really brought us all the information. Now, here's the thing. Can we measure wind speed in a tornado? No, because it's too violent. Every anemometer that we measure wind speed breaks automatically. Even if you've seen Twister, it doesn't really work out that way. So what I'm telling you is he developed this way of looking at damage, and depending on what kind of damage was done to certain buildings, you could tell whether it was an EF0, EF3. Now it's become an EF scale, enhanced Vegeta, based on certain things as they've gone through the years and approximated it. So we've got a weak tornado at an EF0. That's about an 80-mile-per-hour tornado. Now, we had winds on Sunday night, not tornadic, that had winds of 80 miles per hour. So that's why I was saying, when there's severe thunderstorm warnings, sometimes you have to take them just as seriously as tornado warnings because it's just straight line winds, but it can do just as much damage. But as you get to the EF5, which we haven't seen one of those in a long time, and let's pray we don't. We have the day we had the EF5, the latest one I remember was the forgotten EF5, which happened the day of the national tornado in '98. And it was in Wayne and whatever counties down to the south. But we don't have them that much. But EF5 has 200-mile-per-hour winds or greater. Okay, so it's very, 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 very strong. And that is stronger than a Category 5 hurricane, just so in case people are wondering. So tornadoes have stronger winds. The thing is, with tornadoes versus hurricanes, people always ask, like, well, what does the most damage? I would say that even though tornadoes have the strongest winds, hurricanes are larger storms. Tornadoes are harder to see, too. We're detecting them on radar, just so you folks know. When we use the radar and we talk about, hey, it's Doppler radar indicated, it means we have a radar beam shooting up, it's looking at the atmosphere, and it's saying there's swirl in the cloud. So there's the motion going on. But is it actually making it to the ground? We don't know. We need spotters, trained spotters, and that's how we figure out whether there is a tornado on the ground or not. But if there's confirmation of swirl above you, we give you the warning so you got lead time to get to your safe zone and hopefully stay safe.
So a tornado is not actually considered a tornado until it touches the ground, correct?
Correct,
Okay.
yes. So before that, it would be a funnel cloud, you know, and there are other things like wall clouds that we see that are basically like lowerings. And as that starts to happen, I've gotten some videos from recent storms where we've had a little lowering, but it hasn't actually created the thing to come down to the ground. So that's super important too. And they're violent though as they come down. And I mean, that's why we always say stay away from windows, because the first thing they do is like kind of shatter windows and swirl things around. And you can always tell the damage of a tornado versus straight line wind damage too. Like if you're looking at it and you're saying, I think a tornado hit my house. Sometimes it can be accurate. Now, normally what will happen is the National Weather Service will come out, our partners, and we'll check it out and do the investigation. But you can always tell, because if straight line wind damage, the damage is all in a path of a straight line, okay? And sometimes you can have it coming out from a point and going like that, but it's still straight line wind damage. With tornado damage, if you see stuff swirled together, you know, when the national tornado happened, by the way, there were 10 tornadoes that night too, not just the one. I know we think about the Nashville, we think of, there were 10 others.
Mm-hmm.
So when we think of those damage, when I went out, you could see metal kind of wrapped around a tree. And that's how you kind of can tell, because stuff is kind of turned together, and then things are like, well, that was my play set, but that ended up in somebody else's yard 10 miles down the road. I mean, we found stuff from the Nashville tornado, from a restaurant in Nashville. It was found in Putnam County and dropped down. So that's the force of a tornado, and the force of that storm that night was, it was a scary night, and we hope it doesn't happen for a very long time, because it was definitely a historic night, but we all lived through it together, and we all came out of it okay.
Yeah, and we can take away some things, like you said, what we can gather if we come across things like that.
Right.
If we're faced with storms like that, so we can be sure to stay proactive and be safe.
Exactly. You want to stay safe, you want to stay informed, and you want to make sure you've got your safety kit ready to go. If I can stress that enough, unfortunately, we're going into May. We get a lot of tornadoes in May, we get a lot of tornadoes in June, July. It's basically from April to July, the peak months in the U.S. Now for us, it's April, but still, I don't want to say no, you're not going to see one again, because we might. We've already seen 17. It's kind of active, it's busy.
Wow. Well, thank you so much again for coming on and all of this useful information for all of us. Thank you.
Hopefully I didn't bore them and they learned something.
No, we did awesome. Thank you so much.
So as we're preparing, if a tornado comes, we just need to watch TV or maybe download.
Yes, I was going to say, so watch news too. We're always on. If there's a tornado warning, I just want to make sure you guys know this. We are going to cut into your programming. It's Dancing with the Stars. It's part of our legal job, so we're sorry you're going to miss it. I apologize, but I need to save your life. Now, the other thing is we're going to stream it on Facebook, so it's just WKRN News 2 Facebook. We stream there, and also it's the WKRN Weather app. And we have that, and we always say that will save your life. Download, 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 because if you lose power, it is so important, because that thing will be streaming. If you get a warning, it goes directly to your phone. And make sure, if we have something threatening at night, I can't stress it enough, because nighttime, you can't see it if it's coming. So you got to be thinking about, okay, if I'm going to go to sleep early tonight, now a lot of folks stay up for it, but if I'm going to go to sleep, have the phone on and make sure you have it so you can get that warning. It will alert you, and we will send alerts directly to your phone.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome,
Thank
girls.
you so much for joining us. That was
Yes.
Great.
All right, boys and girls. So just to recap, make sure you have all of your safety things in place, and just make sure that you are proactive in the case of any storm or a tornado. If you would like to review this video and see anything we did inside of it or get any more information, you can go onto the Facebook page, cityschools.net, and review the video. And we would love to have a shout out to our scale superstars out there.
Superstars. Yep, we hope you go on both of those pages and look back at the basic materials you need, and maybe you can gather all of your siblings and parents and try this out at home and watch the video over again.